situated in Kimberley. I'm a tour operator, and I was one of the first tour operators to join SATSA in the province. And from the years when I started, it was a completely different view of what tourism is and how it should be done. So I've been learning all the way. I've been in business for 23 years. When I started off, it was to get a degree in zoology and entomology, believing that I was going to work with animals and insects. And it all just changed over the years. I'll keep it short, to a point where I started doing guiding, just as a guide, renting vehicles when I needed it. I eventually started purchasing vehicles. The first vehicle I bought was a Isuzu 4x4. And everyone referred to my 4x4 as a reconnaissance vehicle. And I couldn't understand at first. And then they said, yeah, it's the kind of 4x4 where you drive up a dune and it just gets to the top and just peeps over the top, just do a bit of reconnaissance, and then it slides all the way back. So I was not very happy with that view of my expensive 4x4. But through the years, I've built up a bit of a fleet, and with the ups and downs, you still keep going. But then, as you all know, COVID hit, and a lot of things changed for us. And being stationed in Kimberley, it's kind of a busy route at times, but when everything stops, then tourism opportunities are very limited. Hard lockdown, we had no options, but as soon as lockdown started to lift it a little bit, we had to reinvent ourselves. We had to look at ways to survive, look at ways to start living again, to start earning a bit of an income. Now, the first and most important thing that I thought of at the start of it was that I'm not alone. The most important thing for us to remember is that we're not alone. And I keep on reminding myself of that every time a new thing hits, and clients that are ready to book suddenly find out that we are red listed and that we have this variant that is attached to our country in more ways than one. Then we have to reinvent ourselves again. But every time we have to remember that we're not alone. So that was the most important thing that pulled me through, and the fact that there are people to talk to, such as being a member of SATSA and being able to talk to people that understand, that are part of the process and understand where we're trying to go to. With a lighter lockdown, there's quite a few things that we have to remember when we then start up. And starting up again, or renewed startup here in Kimberley, was based on different angles, trying to understand what our local market needs, and not just our local market for tourism, but other connecting markets as well, where you can actually be part of and actually earn a bit of an income. A lot of it starts off as being volunteer work, being involved in all kinds of different sectors of your community. And through your volunteer work, even fighting fires day and night and trying to help with that. And then when you get a break and everyone sit all black in suit and just having a chat, then we ask one another what you're doing. And then they find out I have a game viewer and I do game drives in one of the nature reserves. And then a few weeks later, I get a booking, and people arrive and they're just relieved to get going again. Their farm is doing much better, and they bring the family and they come and do a game drive. So all these things that we reinvent are based on very important characteristics of our local market. We have to remember that when we have international visitors, we quite often sell them packages, and the packages can be quite large with large amounts attached to it. So we do have a very strong cash flow when it comes to international markets. But when we focus on the local market, we then learn that it's all small amounts. We have to be happy with getting very little on a very dotted basis, on a very small scale. And we have to make do with that. We have to be happy to take a step back from whether we felt we're corporate, or whether we felt that we're a big and strong operator, or whether we just felt comfortable. We have to take a step back and be willing to take the small little handouts for what you do to then build something again, and also just to survive. We have to keep going. My most important step at first was to just get out in nature and just with my daughter, just go and spend time, sit somewhere at a waterhole and watch the animals and just clear our heads and realize that this is all we have now and we should turn it into something positive. So in the years that I've had my business, I got to a point where it became really important to give back. And I purchased a 23-seater game viewer, and I started to offer what I call myself eco kits, that side of my company. And we get school groups from all over the area, from all different communities, and at very low cost, these children can get onto a game viewer and they can get some environmental education about all the different aspects of life, how it interconnects and what happens in nature, even in a nature reserve bordering the town, how that influences your living at home and how you need nature to even look after your crop of carrots in your garden. All of it is interlinked and it all needs each other to survive, which is a very strong basis of what we're doing today. Now, taking those children out and having the opportunity to share with them was great, but when lockdown started, it all stopped. And when it restarted, I still had that 23-seater truck that I'm still paying for every month. And I started to offer game drives where small groups can book on this big truck and have lots of fresh air. You had to reinvent that whole system, whereby before you would rely only on big groups to book this big truck. You're now willing to take out 3 or 4 people or 5 and let them sit around the truck and have all the fresh air and get in a very small income. Even your rates are cut by at least 50% for the local market, because they don't pay with their dollars and pounds, they pay with rands, and hard-earned rands as well. So you have to reach a compromise whereby you lower your rates and then also accommodate all the locals. At first, you have to rely quite heavily on your friends, and you really grab every loose cent they have. So you get them to come out on the game drives. They tell other friends, and more people start to come out on the game drives. And for a tour operator that used to operate in the whole of Southern Africa, all the way to the gorillas in Rwanda and the Masai Mara and South Luangwa, you suddenly stay in Kimberley, and most of what you do is just go out to a nature reserve every day, start up the truck, meet people at the gate, and take them around. But you then reinvent yourself every 2 or 3 weeks, where before you might not believe in Valentine's Day, you suddenly are very pro Valentine's Day, and you make sure that you provide an opportunity for people to go and have a romantic outing out there and get a nice picnic, pre-packed, all separately packed, all protocol orientated. And you reinvent yourself into getting different functions every few weeks so that you can get different clients on the same game viewer every week, whether they're there to have a meeting, whether they want to arrange a bush wedding. It's amazing the amount of things that you can generate from the small thing that you start with. Now, starting with a game viewer is not small, I agree, but whatever you have, you start with, and you offer that to the community around you. Being a photographer, I go out and take pictures of the funniest things and get a small income from it. Some of my pictures are sold and framed and hung in offices to adore. I mean, everyone is now making changes to their home environment, to their yards, their gardens, and whatever you have, you can contribute to that, and you can get a small income out of it, but also just be involved. By being involved, it gives the opportunity for you to be seen and to be appreciated, and people will then pull you in to do small jobs. Now, the important thing about the international market is the packages, whereas with the local markets, some of the previous speakers did mention the packages and how it's all inclusive and you just pay in one point. But I've found that people coming through Kimberley that want to book on an activity, they don't want you to book their accommodation necessarily. They don't want you to include meals and everything else. They believe, South Africans believe, it's cheaper if we just get lost on our own and we just pay for everything on our own, it's much nicer that way. So we South Africans, we do it that way. So we must accommodate that, and we must say, well, here's a game drive. We'll do a bush drive for you. We'll stop somewhere with a fantastic scenic view, and we'll start a fire for you. You can bring your own cooler boxes of drinks and meat and everything and do your braai. We'll set up a very responsible protocol-orientated toilet, bush toilet for you. We'll provide all the facilities, and we'll make sure that we sanitize you before, during, and after. We fill in all the right paperwork and forms, and we give them the opportunity just spend a small amount for their group on an activity with you, and you get something from it. You're willing to just accommodate whatever is available around you. Take a step back and make sure that you're willing to be with whatever process is happening around you. Special rates is something that we seem to be missing the point on in a large part of the tourism community. I've noticed that the emails that come through offering special rates to South Africans quite often is a little bit of a joke, because a big lodge would say that we're cutting by 25%, and it's still another 70% higher than what most South Africans can afford. So I understand the reasoning behind it, but when I started offering special rates, these rates are such that even people that haven't had a job for a while can still afford to come out, get onto the game viewer, and get out in nature and do something with me and spend a few rounds on me, so that I can just keep my business afloat. All right, so the protocols are very important. So I had to make sure that from the start I had the correct protocols in place, and that I keep the protocols in place. So even today, still, every group that get into the truck, fill in their forms, get screened, and everything is done properly, all kept in a proper filing system, so that if it's ever investigated, it has to be in place. So that gives them peace of mind, and they know that you are being responsible. You wear your mask, and you make sure that you treat the situation in such a way that everyone feels comfortable and safe. Now, it's also important that you manage your finances. You have to keep on making payments. You cannot just stop, just say, well, sorry, I'm struggling, and just stop. You have to make arrangements. You have to talk to people that you owe money to, talk to your debtors, make sure that you keep on making payments. And then most of them are reasonable and are willing to help you work out payment plans, as we have with SATSA. So it's important that you find a way to keep in good relationships with the people that you owe money to, and make sure that you deal with it the correct way. If you have vehicles that are paid off, you get to a point where you just don't have the finances anymore. You have to, like I did, make the decision to sell off your vehicles that are paid off to get in a cash boost, so that you can just keep your business afloat. Now, the gap fillers and the niche markets and the different things that you're able to do, as a lot of the previous speakers said, you have to use what you're good at. You have to use the knowledge that you have to make sure that you provide a good service and that people pay you for it. So whatever niche market you can create, whatever small business you run, there is a place for you, and you're not alone. There's lots of people to speak to and lots of people that can help you. And if you work with other people, if you collaborate, if you have teamwork, if you have partners, it's the only way that you'll survive. And it's the only way that I've survived, whether it's punishing my friends in the process. You always need your collaborations, and that'll help you survive. I hope this helps a little bit. I didn't really stick to my own program, but I hope this helps. Thank you very much for the opportunity.